Hey, Battle Bill, here with another video, getting into some Season 9 Go Battle League battles in the Great League. Guess who's back? Back again. Let's stop that there before I get copyrighted, but please go and tell your friends. Battle Bill is going to be coming back with some content these past couple months. I'm a teacher, or I'm on summer vacation, and somehow I ended up uploading way less than I had done in the past. So I want to make a goal of mine for Season 9 is to get back on my YouTube grind. Now, daily video is not realistic, but I'm going to try my best to get out 5 videos a week. Especially with the school year coming up, it's going to be a little bit tough, but I really do want to be putting more effort into the YouTube scene. I've been streaming every day on Twitch. Streaming is just a lot easier than doing YouTube content, which is why I've been there daily. So if you want to see my battles and you miss me, link is in the description of this video. If not, and you just like to stick to YouTube, well, I'm going to try my YouTube comeback, hopefully. And I've decided to, come back right at the perfect time with the Season 9 update. Lots of nerfs, lots of buffs. It's an exciting time to be back on the Go Battle League grind for the content. And today we're going to focus on a Pokemon that some other people might not be focusing on right away. But people will be getting to it, and I know all the bigger content creators are all in love with Koffigarius, however you pronounce that Pokemon's name, and I know Manectric now is Overheat over Flame Burst, so that's an exciting one, but I'm going to focus on Shadow Poliwrath. And speaking of mispronunciations, please don't get too upset in the comment section, and if it hurts you the way I pronounce this, then you might as well just leave this video now. But Shadow Poliwrath, or Poliwrath in general, just has got access to Scald, now I'm just really playing around with the pronunciations, but I'm going to be pronouncing it Scald. I think that's how I'm going to go with it. I apologize in advance if that's not how you want to hear it, but anyhow, I want to see how much of an upgrade this makes Politoed in this meta, especially now that Scald not only is being given access on Poliwrath, but Scald also got upgraded. I think does it do more damage now? It has a 30% chance of debuff. I think it also improves on the damage scale. It takes the same amount of energy as Dynamic Punch, does 80 damage compared to Dynamic Punch's 90, so it hits pretty hard with Stab on Poliwrath, and then the 30% chance of debuff should be interesting, and we put it together on quite the team comp. So these are battles from my Twitch live stream. I've cut out just some of the better ones because, again, this is the first day battles. You're going to see some weird stuff. Even in this set of battles, we have about like 10 of them. And you're going to see some weird stuff here, so I apologize in advance. But there were some meta battles, and this was a team comp that I ended up rocking. We went with Nidoqueen Double Water. So, of course, if we're running Shadow Poliwrath, I got to get used to this whole commentating thing again. And we're going to run Jellicent, 2 water types. We need something that's going to hard counter any potential electric types or Galvantula specifically. So that's the main one you're going to see in Great League battles. So we have Nidoqueen on the lead. And I also just like Nidoqueen as a lead because it wins a lot of situations. And then when it doesn't win, it could debuff the heck. And the logic here isn't really to stay in these matchups anyway. So maybe Poison Fang and Dip in certain situations. And then safe swap to either Poliwrath or Jellicent. I feel like Jellicent is a safe swap out of the 2 options here, but in this situation I have to safe swap Poliwrath just based on the fact I'm not going to bring in a Ghost against a dark type of Scrafty. So as you'll see, we get the Scald and Dynamic Punch at the same time. And they're going to throw a charge move here. They've powered up quite a bit, so the neutral pups are starting to worry me, but we're over farming a bunch. We're taking advantage. They decided to stay in, so it's telling me that maybe Shadow Poliwrath, new meta OP mon. Look at that Scald. It looks like a mini Hydro Pump. Looks really dope. They should just brought in Azu right away. I don't understand why they decided not to swap it again. Like I said, first day battles, it's going to be like that, and we're just going to be spamming Scald. Yes, Dynamic Punch would hit harder against Azu. Both of them are singular resisted, but I want that 30% chance of debuff. And I've thrown it twice, and I still have not seen that debuff. They then come in with Nidoqueen to get a quick poison jab in to farm me down, and then revealing their last mon makes my decision a lot easier in this matchup. I mean, I was going to save Nidoqueen for Azu regardless, but I'm going to bring in Jelly for their Shadow Nidoqueen. I'm running Ice Beam and Shadow Ball on it because, again, the logic with this team comp is to lure out potential grass type, but also lure out potential not grass, I meant to say electric type, but also lure out potential grass type, and we want to have Ice Beam mainly because of the grass types that we may see, and I might have to use Jellicent elsewhere. We might end up in a zero shield with Jellicent on a grass type, and I would love for Jellicent to be able to hit them, which is why we're not running Bubble Beam. Also, I just think Jellicent as a closer is better with Ice Beam than Bubble Beam. There's not too many situations when you're in the no shield where you're like, yeah, let me throw a Bubble Beam to try to slow down the inevitable of whatever the matchup is. There might be some situations. Don't quote me. I'm not saying 100 times out of 100 you don't want that, but that's not the point here. Anyhow, we have Nidoqueen on the Azu, and we're going to finish it off with a nice little Poison Fang, take out the remaining health. And this first match has gone pretty well, but we won lead, and then they played it weird when we safe swap Poliwrath. Should just brought an Azu. But what are you going to do? You can only play the battle that's in front of you. Let's get into this next one. We have Nidoqueen on and Azu. Beautiful lead here. Now, this is where I get a little concerned, though, because it's such a nice lead. We don't want to swap out and lure out that potential electric or grass type. And then also, the reason why I would recommend potentially safe swapping Poliwrath is to lure out a Charmer so Nidoqueen can come in and farm that down. So that's also another situation. If you decide to run this team comp, I actually had a lot of success with it. I enjoyed it on the day on stream. I saved a set from the last season. So I had 6 sets. I went 25-5 with it. But again, it's day 1, so it's kind of hard to take that sample size too seriously. But, oh, I brought in Jellicent here. I was about to say, here's a reason why you want to try out Scald on Poliwrath, but I brought in Jellicent anyway. They had Fire Spin, and then they threw Bone Club. I was expecting Shadow Bone. I'm like, I'm going to tank it. The reason why did I bring Jellicent here and not Alolan Marowak? I mean, not Politoed. I should have brought in Politoed here, but it ends up working out better that I didn't. I think in that moment, I was just kind of like, yeah, let's Shadow Ball them and resist the Fire Spins, but then I could have had success with Poliwrath in that same situation. But it works out for the best because they have a Scrafty in the back that I didn't know about until now, so... 5-head, obviously, completely planned. I 100% knew what I was doing ahead of time. But you might be wondering why I'm running Dynamic Punch and Scald. So, PvPoke suggests Ice Punch and Scald, and I feel odd about that. Now, Ice Punch is nice. It lets you cover Poliwrath's weaknesses against the flyers, and definitely would help against a specific flyer like Altaria or Tropius, where they can double super effective damage. Now, here's why I'm not running Ice Punch. I like when my fighters can fight. So running Ice Punch and Scald, yeah, you can hit something like Stun Fist. That's a ground type for super effective because it's a ground type and a steel type. But when you're going up against like other steel types, or you're going up against other dark types, things that are going to take super effective damage from typical fighters, like what you would want to use Poliwrath for, you need to have Dynamic Punch in order to make that a reality. You can't hit super effective damage with Ice Punch and Scald. So I don't want to really treat Poliwrath like a water type. I want to use it like it's a fighter. So that's why I'm going with Dynamic Punch and Scald. And I also want to just try out Scald. So that's why I'm not running like Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch. But then again, if I'm doing that, then we're kind of in the same situation would have been in any season with Poliwrath, he's been pretty unusable. I mean, sure, he'd be a cool spice pick here and there in other seasons as like a Shadow with Mud Shot, Dynamic Punch, and Ice Punch. But we're here for the new updated Season 9 moves and all that kind of content. So we're using Scald and Dynamic Punch on our Poliwrath. And you saw that Dynamic Punch hit that Galarian Sunfisk really hard. Well, watch this Scald. They decided not to shield. I don't know if they were expecting an Ice Punch, but either way, once that landed, almost one-shot the Galvantula. And they decided the top left, so that was a beautiful match where Poliwrath really went off. Now, why am I using a Shadow over a regular? Well, Shadow's ranked better. So that time, I definitely listened to PvPoke. I went with PvPoke. And of course, when you're hitting with big moves like Dynamic Punch and Scald, ideally, the Shadow boost would be helpful on a Pokemon like Poliwrath because it'll make some of those moves hit in one shot. You don't want to be using big moves that cost a lot of energy, even when you're generating energy with Mud Shot and then have to throw 2 moves. So that's where it also helps. And Poliwrath in general is not exactly the bulkiest Pokemon in Great League. It's not glassy, but it's not the bulkiest either. So you might as well sacrifice some of the decent bulk that it has. It's not a complete glass. Well, it's definitely more of a glass cannon here. But you're going to hit a lot harder, and that damage you're going to be outputting is worth it. So they safe swap into Altaria, and we come with Jellicent. This is one of the situations where we like having Ice Beam, but they kind of see the Ice Beam coming. So when we throw this, they're going to shield and match shields. Altaria can be a problem for this team comp. This team is not perfect. Yes, I had success with it. Is this necessarily a go-to team I'd recommend? Maybe. Again, I did really well with it, so it's kind of hard to say. But it's going to come with its weaknesses, especially when using something as spicy as Poliwrath. The question is, how much more meta is Poliwrath going to become now with Scald? And I really enjoyed using it, so it was hitting really hard. We'll run into some more situations. I'll get my final analysis at the end on what I think about Poliwrath in general, but we ended up playing this matchup and losing Switch, and then they came back in with a Azumarill. So I'm like, what could you possibly have in the back that you didn't want to bring into my Nidoqueen? And I'm not going to swap because I have a shield, and I'm like, all right, either bubble me down or throw like they did. They should have bubbled me down, but, you know, we'll take it, and then we'll come with Poliwrath, and they had Galarian Sunfisk. So I'm guessing they were worried about getting hit by an Earth Power, but they definitely would have preferred that than to have my Poliwrath on their Galarian Sunfisk. Also, they threw really early, so that was a very obvious Rock Slide. They also throw early again here. Oh, no, this doesn't kill. Not here. I'm throwing here. I'm going for a Dynamic Punch that almost one-shots, but it puts at least in Mud Shot range because, again, back to my whole point on you want to hit hard enough where you don't have to throw another one. They go for another Charge Move here. I knew this was another Rock Slide, but at this point, I'm like, I just need to farm this down and throw it Azumarill, and I don't have to worry about whatever potential energy and move it might throw. So I'm like, I might as well shield the Rock Slide, even though it's obvious and never know with this game. Sometimes sneaky stuff happens, and if that rock slide turned into an earthquake and ruined my YouTube content and my Twitch content at the same time, I would not have been a happy camper. But yeah, Poliwrath, Azumarill counter confirmed with Scald. I mean, I hit it with a dynamic punch, but you know, semantics. Anyhow, this Pokemon specifically, Skarmory. Skarmory in the lead. Big weakness for this team comp. It's really annoying. Our only decent answer for Skarmory is Jellicent. So we're stuck in a situation where I don't want to swap out because I don't want Poliwrath lined up with Skarmory, especially Skarmory with energy advantage. So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to Poison Fang it, hit her with an Earth Power, do as much damage as possible, and then come with Jellicent. And just hope they don't pivot and recognize the fact that I'm like struggling against a Skarmory. We do some decent damage there because, again, like I said, the Poison Fang debuff and then the Earth Power was nice. And they're also still debuffed. So we're going to come in with Jellicent, and we're going to see how they decide to play this out. They could either pivot or they could generate a bunch of energy and try and throw a Brave Bird or throw a Sky Attack. They threw pretty quickly here, but they still have a bunch of energy. They get a Sky Attack off here, and I'm like, all right, nice. I'm going to hex them all the way down. And then they get to another Sky Attack. I was like, damn, I don't remember them farming me that much. I'm watching this battle back, and I clearly was not paying enough attention. I'm like, damn, they really farmed me a lot there. This team against Skarmory and Nidoqueen's matchup in general against Skarmory, not a great one. So we have to throw. We can't even hex down. And now that we've done that, we're going to swap into Poliwrath and just hope that they are weak in the back line to Poliwrath, and they're not. They have a Azumarill. So we're just going to Scald the heck out of it. We're playing the 2-shield situation, so we're doing less damage. Again, both stab, Scald doesn't hurt as much, but both are also singular resisted. Scald because of Azu's water typing, and Dynamic Punch because of Azu's fairy typing. But we're hoping for that 30% debuff, so we're throwing a bunch of Scalds here. We could have technically gone for Dynamic Punches to do a little bit more damage, like I said, but we want to get a debuff and pray that we could somehow survive a potential play route that's going to come through. We're out here spamming. Again, Dynamic Punch is not a cheap move, but with Mud Shot, Poliwrath gets to it quickly, and similar to Scald, it gets to those moves very quick because of Mud Shot as a fast move. So I do like Poliwrath for that, and I also like having Poliwrath as a water type. It's nice to be able to, you know, go up against an Alolan Marowak or a fire type and hit it with just a fire type in general and hit it with actual super effective damage. Now, are you seeing a bunch of those? I mean, the amount of fire types in the meta, again, I thought the first one that comes to mind is Alolan Marowak. I'm trying to think of other potential ones. There's like Kanto Ninetales, which you could hit for super effective damage also instead of neutral with Dynamic Punch. And you also have to decide if that really outweighs the whole balance between, you know, Ice Punch hitting the flyers or, you know, using Poliwrath as a water type. But I enjoyed it, and I also like the fact that you can use Poliwrath in a sense to try and debuff your opponent, whereas Ice Punch, yes, nice that it hits the flyers, but it does not debuff opponents. So we're playing out a Nidoqueen on a Bastiodon lead, and we could play this lead out and win, but we have to remember the whole purpose of this team comp, and that is to lure out a potential grass or electric type. We let a charge come through because we know Nidoqueen can tank it well. We're also using regular Nidoqueen just based on the pure fact that I don't want the scene to be too glassy by using double shadows. And also, here's another situation where it's nice to be able to use Poliwrath as a water type. In the situation we're going up against a Psychic, like Medicham, you can hit it with some nice neutral damage and go for a potential debuff. Whereas they're throwing Ice Punches, but that's because Poliwrath is so glassy, these counters are adding up. And even against something like a Ghost type, sure, Ice Punch would still hit neutrally, but Scald's going to do more damage, and it's going to have the potential debuff. So I like it in those situations. And then other than Altaria and Tropius, the main two flyers I can think of, when you're going up against other flyers that would resist Dynamic Punch, you can hit them with neutral damage with Scald. So at least like those options are there. We're going to let this Ice Punch come through because we know we're not surviving the counters after. And we also got both their shields. So we're going to come with Jelly and try to farm them all the way down. And then they decide to swap into their Bastion. And I'm like, weird play. And also their Bastion was energy dry, which I recognize in the situation. So I overfarmed. And I'm like, oh, this team looks familiar. There's a Sableye back there along with that Medicham. This was a very popular team last season, and I'm sure it's going to be popular now this season because of the pure fact that it didn't get nerfed really in any way. The only way this team would feel any type of nerf is if like its counters got stronger, which off the top of my head, I can't think of too many. The main backline weakness is Charm, but again, they're playing it ABB style with that weakness to Charm, which is why they're leading Bastiodon. So it's not like Charm got any stronger, and there's not a lot of fairy moves out there to scare that backline, which is what it's double weak to, because of the pure fact that Sableye is literally only double weak to Charm. But we play this nicely. We're able to hex down the Sableye and save our shields. We can shield this here. They can't get to an Ice Punch and a Psychic in time, so we don't mind getting baited. Also, it didn't look like our hex went through, but it did go through. Very weird visual situation. And we get to the Shadow Ball, and we're going to take out the Machamp. So recognizing the Bastiodon having literally no energy from earlier in the match, and then over farming before throwing the Shadow Ball to take it out. Very smart play, because I ended up having the perfect amount of energy to take out the Sableye and the Medicham with the Jellicent clutch there. But again, the whole point isn't just to show you the Poliwrath, is to also try to give you the best possible team comp. Again, building around Poliwrath was not an easy task. Building around Poliwrath with its grass weakness, its electric weakness, with its charm weakness, with its, did I say electric already? Its flying weakness. It's got so many weaknesses. So it's like, how do you build a team that's not double weak to something for this Pokemon? Not easy. This was the best I was able to come up with. And again, Skarmory in the lead specifically is the biggest problem. Here, not as much, especially because that very late swap, this is where Scald comes in very clutch. We decided to throw that for the neutral damage, even though Dynamic Punch would hit neutrally, and that worked out to a T. Because if we threw Dynamic Punch, sure, we would have hit for more damage, but we would not have gotten the the attack debuff that it gives you, similar again to like Moonblast, which allowed us to get to another Scald and get the shield. If we went Dynamic Punch, we would have done a little bit more damage and have a little bit less health, but he still have a shield and he would have farmed those down. So Scald, very clutch there. Unfortunately, clutchness comes based off a 30% chance at an attack debuff, but that is the name of the game. RNG. Play into it, you build your team comp so that these types of situations can work out in your favor like it just did. And then I think they overfarmed. I think they wanted to go for a Brave Bird because they knew their Skarmory was going to die, and then they just fell short of it, and we got the Earth Power to take them out. We swap immediately, and they come in and throw immediately. So we catch a Hydro Cannon and Jellicent, which was huge. And then they decide to farm their energy back up, which is a very smart play on their end. And then they come in the Berserker. And I'm like, first of all, I thought it was Registeel. And then secondly, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in danger here. It's a good thing I overfarmed, so they can't exactly like Shadow Claw me all the way down, plus Jelly's so thick. So I let the foul play come through in my mind. I'm like, the play here is to Poison Jab down a Steel type. Thankfully, Berserker, even though it's steel, it's some sort of paper mache steel, because that thing bends, breaks, and tears very easily. Able to Poison Jab the heck out of it. They close combat to try and stop the amount of farming we're getting, which was a very smart play on their part. They're only at one Hydro Cannon, though, because of the way they threw, and we outpace them to the Earth Power, which is going to be huge here. The Earth Power is going to take out the Swamper's remaining health, and we match up perfectly as we could. We were talking about this in chat with when I was doing this live on Twitch. That Swampert had a CP like 1467, so probably a bad IVs. Because I was very surprised that the Earth Power ended up taking it out. But you know what? We can only play the matches in front of us. Just like this shiny Galarian Sunfist. Crazy Pokemon here. Don't want to stay in and build up to an Earth Power to hit it with. We're going to save swap to lure this thing out, which is a Tropius with Air Slash. We throw the Dynamic Punch first. I'm not really sure what my logic was on this one because both of them are single resisted. And then I was like, let's go for Scald next. Let's just get a little razzle dazzle with both moves for the content. Throw both of them at the Tropius. They shield the second one, which blew my mind. I was hoping they shield the first one because I'm like, you know, Ice Punch, double super effective. Maybe you'll think I have it. And then when they didn't shield it and they shielded the second one, I was very confused. Either way, we hit it with 2 Scalds. We should have tried to hit it with 3 Scalds. The damage there wasn't a big deal. We really just wanted to get a potential debuff. They farmed the living heck out of us, though, so if we would have gotten the debuff, they would have gotten more farm. But then again, these neutral Leaf Blades that are going to come through wouldn't hit as much if we would have gotten it. So they're just going to spam a bunch of Leaf Blades. Thankfully, Tropius doesn't hit that hard, so they'll get to 3 in total. They've already thrown 1, 2 more incoming, and we will survive them. So we're going to try to go for the Poison Jab down. They get to another Leaf Blade here. And Nidoqueen will hang on, and we will jab down, and we're going to hope that we get enough energy so if the Stunfisk comes in, we can Earth Power it, and that's what happens because a Mudshot would have taken out our remaining health. Then they come in with Mew, so I was happy to get out the Earth Power regardless, and I get the shield, which is pretty huge because I have a 2 shield and no shield advantage, so I'm going to shield whatever comes through. We're going to CMP tie. I'm happy with CMP tie because they could have swapped and caught on the Stunfisk, and if they would have done that, this Mew would have been a huge problem for me. If this Mew was able to throw and get out and then potentially come back in, that would have been a big no-no for Jellicent trying to clutch endgame. So we land the Shadow Ball there, take it out, and our 1 win condition here is to either call a bait or shield the Earthquake and get off 2 Shadow Balls. Because of the situation, I recognize they can get to 2 Earthquakes pretty comfortably, so that's why I expected them not to bait there, and I was able to shield that Earthquake, but we will have a problem here if they get to another Earthquake. So we try to swap, we click it, but we're in the middle of the Hex, and I'm like, oh no, Earthquake's going to take me out. I'm going to lose this game, and I called the move, but Jellicent's thick, and it does not do enough damage to take out Jellicent, so we were worried for no reason. Jellicent, you know, OP, obviously. More OP in Ultra League, but thankfully its thickness and IVs matter, which is why 1, 8, 10 is pretty pog IVs to have in that situation. Worse IVs probably would have died there, and then I would have been really upset when my Nidoqueen got mud shot down. So getting into this next one, we have a poor lead with Nidoqueen on Jellicent, but I can't exactly swap out of this one. This was another Pokemon I kind of ran into, and I'm like, this is a bit of a weakness also. I can't save swap Poliwrath. I'm not going to bring in Jellicent to play the mirror match while behind on energy. That doesn't sound like a smart idea. So I'm going to stay in here, and the way they threw was weird. They didn't even try to bluff Shadow Ball, so I was able to just continue to call these baits and just go straight Earth Power. But a different trainer that might have known the situation a little bit better, this would have been tougher to play out of. And this is the only Jellicent matchup that I ended up having. And we win the Zero Shield there. But I mean, like, we won the Zero Shield where they went straight Bubble Beam. I feel like, you know, they go up to Shadow Ball, potentially landed or whatnot. And I mistapped on my phone there. But thankfully, I was able to get off a Poison Fang there, get their shield, and do some decent damage. And because of the fact that I was able to win that lead, their Charmeleon Ninetales lines up with my Jellicent instead of Poliwrath, because Poliwrath would get deleted by Charm. But yeah, the way they play that, you don't want to do that. You want to build the Shadow Ball, maybe bait a Bubble Beam, but you want to just try and land the Shadow Ball. Because in most situations, you're not going to want to play out the 2 shields. And then also, on top of the fact, if you call my Earth Powers, then you can just... Wait, what am I trying to say in English? Sorry, Poliwrath just made that basket on top left, and you know you love to see it. You know you love to see that kind of content. So I was like, losing my train of thought, like, I got to catch up to the gameplay. And I'm too stuck on a previous point. What was my point? I don't remember. Let's get into this next one. So we save swap here. We got Jellicent with Ice Beam on a Venusaur. I was talking about the Nidoqueen Jellicent matchup. Either way, it could have been played better. That's really all you need to understand at the end of the day. And I don't have another matchup where that could have happened. What probably would have happened was I go straight Earth Power, do as much damage as I could with Nidoqueen on Jellicent, and then come with my own Jellicent to try and, you know, hex it down. But here we make a huge play. We save swap Jelly, and they match with a Venusaur, and they decide not to call the Ice Beam, which was huge. And again, that's why we like having Jellicent with Ice Beam when you're running as like a save swap or as a closer, because if you're running Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball there, you don't end up in that same situation where you can potentially hex down and flip switch. And flipping switch, as you can see, is important. This is an extremely meta team that we're going up against, one in which we lost lead because we had Nidoqueen on Galarian Stunfisk, and then we flip switch with Jelly on Venusaur, and now their last Pokemon is Azu, and this is looking great. Now, I am a little concerned because Galarian Stunfisk did have energy on it. They're going to go for a charge move here. I'm not expecting a Hydro Bump. It ends up being an Ice Beam. We need to save that shield because I'm worried that Shadow Poliwrath cannot tank an Earthquake. So they go for the move. I'm going to shield. I'm going to get baited. Not looking great. So we really want this Scald attack to debuff. I'm figuring this game to shield no matter what because Scald super effective, Dynamic Punch super effective, gonna hit Stunfisk hard, has to respect it. We do not get the debuff. I'm sitting there like, no, Poliwrath is glass. It's gonna fall apart to this Earthquake. Thankfully, Galarian Stunfisk is a tanky Pokemon, so its attack is not that strong. And we were able to just barely survive. We get off the Dynamic Punch here, and it takes out the Stunfisk's remaining health. But that's the other thing I like about having Poliwrath. When you're in that situation where you know your opponent's going to shield, so you can throw the different move instead of Dynamic Punch. You could throw Scald when it might be resisted, but you know they're going to shield because they have to respect Dynamic Punch. It's nice to be able to throw something that could potentially get you a debuff and help you out further into the game. So that's another part of why I really enjoyed using Shadow Poliwrath. Do I think it's meta like its counterpart Politoed was last season, the season before that? No, I don't think so with Scald, but you can definitely have some spice fun with it. And as we've kind of mapped out throughout the battles, as we were kind of just commentating over everything, I do think that the best way to run Shadow Poliwrath would be with Dynamic Punch and Scald, and you could definitely have success with it. You could definitely win some games. As we get into some more meta matches as the season progresses, I'll play around this team a little bit more, but I want to test out more of the new stuff and have some more fun with that kind of content. But I'll try to get back to you on how much success this team could potentially give you. Like I said, not a perfect team. Please don't go in the comment section and tell me what's wrong with this team. It's clear, and I've gone over it. Skarmory leads a problem. Electric and grass in the back are a problem, but you're playing it ABB style. You have to worry about some charm in the back a bit. Jealous and not as weak, but you know, that's why you run it in the ABB safe swap type of situation so that you could then lure the charmer into the Nidoqueen later. And then flyers, Nidoqueen does well against flyers, Jellicent does well against flyers. So this team does cover Poliwrath's many weaknesses pretty well. But again, the big issue is Poliwrath does have a lot of weaknesses. But I do really like Scald for it, and I do think it's an upgrade over its moveset of Mud Shot, Dynamic Punch, and Ice Punch. I do. Even though it's not covering its flying weakness as much anymore, the other situations where it can benefit the rest of the team comp, especially with a potential debuff, which is 30%, because we've learned in the past with percentages and RNG, how much those types of debuffs can lead to a team success. I do believe that Shadow Poliwrath with this moveset is the way to go if you want to play around with it and have fun with it. If you could think of another team comp, please do let me know. Tell me in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of this team comp. Let me know what you thought of the battles and whatnot. Please give me your, opinions, thoughts, and whatnot. And I'm excited to be back. So please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It really means a lot, especially as I try to push these videos back into the algorithm, because that's been my struggle for the past like 6 months since I've been uploading super inconsistently. But anyhow, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the heck out of you, and I will see you all in the next video.